Hey, everybody, this is Dan.
And this is Ron.
And this is a nominee questionable movies. And today we have one of our favorite guests. He's so much of a favorite guest, we've had him on. This is the hat trick episode for Matt Cornell.
Yay!
Yeah, my third episode, Season of the Witch.
Yeah, this is...
Or The Search for Spock.
Right.
That's the first Star Trek movie that I ever saw.
What was the third Police Academy?
This is the episode where Sofia Coppola is going to end up screaming at a wedding at the end of it.
Speaking of Coppola.
Yes.
Speaking of Coppola, so we watched, today we watched, you want to introduce it, Matt?
Yeah, so a long time ago when I was on, we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but we wanted to talk about Crispin Glover. And then we decided to pick movies that either we hadn't seen ever or in a long time. So we ended up watching WILLARD from 2000 and...
So I actually cheated. I did it based on what was in my apartment.
Oh, okay.
On DVDs. So I kind of rigged the vote a little bit, but...
Okay. So WILLARD is from... Okay.
2003 WILLARD.
WILLARD 2003, Twister from 1989, and then we watched a pilot called Best of Times, a television pilot.
And that's from 1981, I believe.
Yeah. Where do we start?
Oh, the reason I said Coppola is it's got Nick Cage. The pilot has Nicolas Cage in it. I don't know if I'm like...
I think it's the first thing Nicolas Cage ever did, at least that I know of. Like, I know that Crispin Glover had done a bit part on Happy Days before that. But I don't think that, I think that was because he's credited as Nicholas Coppola. Yeah. So he hadn't dropped the family name yet. Because for those not in the know, he's Francis Ford Coppola's nephew, I believe. And ergo, he is related to, there's a lot of them out in Hollywood.
Yeah, and I think
like
a year after this, he does Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and he's still Nicholas Coppola.
Oh.
He only becomes Cage in his next movie. But
and actually, I watched that movie like within the last few months too. So that is that's one way we could get derailed. But you'll have to keep listening to figure out what eventually derails us.
Maybe we could start with like the popular consciousness around Crispin Glover, where we most of us first made contact with this otherworldly being. And that would be Back to the Future, right? 1985.
Yes.
So I didn't even realize he was in that until I had a weird introduction because I was kind of obsessed with Ray Carney before I had to take him down, along with John Jost and Mark Rappaport, and that was like very pleasingly Freudian. And but yeah, I totally forgotten he was in Back to the Future. And that's actually the first thing I saw was Twister, which I have not watched again since I was probably 15 and we watched tonight. Right. And then I think my dad was still selling Tandy Radio Shack computers with my mother at that point, and I did not exist.
They used to sell that. I used to have a TRS-80. That was my first computer.
Oh, I got one in the living room now. I found theirs in the basement. There's like 10 boxes of, I got 2 of them actually, believe it or not. They had 2 because it was a business. No graphics card, but I do have a 3 floppy bay expansion kit.
Our storage media was cassette tapes for the one we had.
Oh, okay. You must have had the, so mine, secondly, it's a TRS-80 Model 12. So it's a modified Model 2.
Yeah, mine was a negative 12. Was whatever before they were invented. That's the one I had. Like,
yeah, these ones are like, they have the floppy disks are the size of your head, but it's a 1.25 megabytes per floppy disk. The downside is there's no hard drive, so I get these things out of the basement. I don't take the floppy disks, and I realize there is no operating system. Like, the reason there's 2 floppy drives is one of them needs to have the operating system in it before you could do anything with it. But I plugged it in, and it turns on.
Great. I also used to have a Roby Senior robot.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, did your parents sell those too? Did you have one of those ever?
No. Okay, we had... Yeah, no, I don't think so.
It also operates with a cassette, and because it was made in Texas, Robbie Sr. has like a Texas accent. He's like, "Hello, I am your personal robot." And that's a very bad, I'm not doing it right, but He has a Texas accent. It's some programmer in Texas who recorded
My older sister had like a 3/4 scale R2D2 that you could make move around with a remote control, and I've been looking for another one of those for not very hard, because I think if I had an income and I was looking hard, I could probably find one of these lying around somewhere. But
yeah.
if anybody else remembers that existing, I haven't found anybody that remembers those being a thing.
Yeah. I had a Teddy Ruxpin knockoff.
Do you mean AG Bear? Because there was something called AG Bear.
Oh, really? Oh, maybe.
So Teddy Ruxpin like had pre-recorded, voice.
Yeah.
So you could, but Teddy Ruxpin was something that just had like a speaker inside the stuffing, and then it would mimic whatever you said, but just like not words. So if you went like "hello," it would go, like. And it was about like a third of the price of the Teddy Ruxpin, right? Because it didn't really say what you said.
Well, I remember being bored with it after 5 minutes. and I didn't understand why my dad brought that home when I was 13.
Well,
okay.
I mean, how are things with your mother?
My mother?
No, with Ron's parents.
I don't get it.
I don't know. I feel like when you're 13 and your dad brings something home and you can't figure it out, there's usually something going on behind the scenes.
I just thought I all of a sudden I felt like I was in therapy. I was like, how is your relationship with your mother?
Well, we are all on couches.
Yeah. Maybe because we are talking about ancient storage media and toys, we should start logically in 1981 with The Best of Times.
Yeah, I think so.
Ron, do you want to explain what it is?
It's a TV show about teenagers. It's episodic in that
Or it was supposed to be episodic.
Yeah. Oh, what I mean is that there's little tiny episodes.
Oh, yeah.
In the whole episode, there's just
a variety show.
It's a variety show, yeah, because there's actually there's some personal stuff, but also these comic bits. Jackie Mason is in it as a Storno, and then also there's some random musical numbers.
It's like Hee Haw for teenagers.
Yeah, I thought it was like Clarissa Explains It All meets Laugh-In.
There you go, Laugh-In. Better, yeah. But it was a pilot, so it never got picked up. And yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Jackie Mason, because I had to go and look it up. Jackie Mason was, I believe, 50, depending on what you believe, he might have been 53 when this was made. So basically at this point, and he's still alive. So basically that means that Nicolas Cage is now Jackie Mason's age, I think. If I have that right. Anyways, yeah, so it has Nicolas Cage in his first appearance and Crispin Glover, and they were actually 17 years old. And then I looked this up on Wikipedia. All of those people were teenagers, and the one who's like a guitarist, she like wants to be a guitarist in a rock band. She was already at 16 a guitarist in a rock band, like playing on the Sunset Strip and stuff. So these were really like, there is this, it wasn't that fake. I mean, these were Hollywood teenagers playing characters with their own names, right? And Crispin's mom is playing his mom, and yeah.
Oh, and the girl that I think that he's really into was in the original Facts of Life, or like the first season of Facts of Life.
Yeah.
Or I recognize.
Well, it's funny to wonder about why it didn't get picked up, because it's not bad. It's pretty innocent, right? That's what strikes me about it. Is just like a year later you get Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was really kind of shocking in terms of how it addressed sex and stuff like that, in a way that you don't have from this. Like nowadays, like if you had teenagers or a show about high school kids, it would deal with drug abuse and sex and all this kind of stuff. This is very innocent. It's like asking someone to the prom. It's
pretty Degrassi.
Yeah, this is pretty Degrassi. Very Degrassi.
What I was struck by was how much of it was Crispin Glover dancing. There's an awful lot of him dancing.
Oh yeah, and he comes across as like so kind of, because there's not this because there's this whole cultural image around Crispin Glover now that you see a different side of his persona because that isn't established yet. Like he comes across as this very sweet, geeky 17-year-old. He's supposed to be kind of like the Ron Howard Happy Days, like every kid kind of, or at least they think he is, because they're clearly building the pilot around him. And like his bedroom, his asides, he's supposed to be sort of the slightly older kid. you're watching as a kid to get into the show, right? Because like kids shows, it's always pitched at whoever's like 3 to 4 years younger than the kids on the screen are supposed to be.
Might explain why it's relatively innocent in terms of its content, I guess. It has a kind of Sesame Street vibe. Like Jackie Mason is almost Mr. Hooper. Like, you know.
Oh, whoa.
Right, because he's a grocery store owner, and they kind of bother him, but not in any kind of like way there he has to call the police or anything. They just sort of low-key harass him.
They like want his attention.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing, of course, is it's a very whitewashed portrait of LA. I mean, you know, there's a scene where they do like a country version of 9 to 5 in a car wash.
Yeah.
Where like they're dancing around. And if you look in the background, you can see that it's a car wash that has like a taqueria in it. And the sign says like tripas and, you know, sesos and all this stuff. I'm thinking, yeah, these kids are these white Beverly Hills High kids aren't hanging out in front of the taqueria wherever they shot this thing, right?
Well, no, because like Jackie Mason is about as ethnic as this gets.
Yeah.
Like Jackie Mason and the Coppola last name.
And the other kind of special effect besides Crispin Glover dancing is Nicolas Cage with his shirt off for the entire thing.
Oh yeah, he never puts his shirt on.
He's basically
supposed to be like the bully, like tough guy, cool kid.
Yeah.
The when he's explaining to a friend of his like how to pick up girls, and he's talking to him really close up, shirtless on the beach. One of the gayest things I've ever seen on television.
Yeah, it's definitely it will definitely be a shocker to anyone who hasn't looked at old Nicolas Cage in a while, right? I know he still does movies with his shirt off, like it's kind of his thing, but he's almost trapezoidal in this one.
Oh yeah, and he was like not afraid of, because this is like 3 years before Valley Girl, right? Where he's stuck in like the Valley Girl outfit in the bathroom for 10 minutes or something. It's been a long time since I saw Valley Girl, but
we showed it at Cinema of the Damned about a year and a half ago, and only 2 people came. It was a tragedy.
Oh.
I know.
Oh,
you would think Nicolas Cage people would want to see his old work, but no. Yeah. I was one of those 2 people, so I really enjoyed it. But the weirdest thing that I wasn't prepared for in this is towards the end of Best of Times, Nicolas Cage delivers a monologue directly into the camera about how he's afraid of being drafted to fight in El Salvador.
Yeah,
right.
That was just out of the blue.
That blew my mind for a couple of reasons. First, I was like, I was surprised that there was anything that political going to happen in this show. But also, I didn't know that it was even a question that American teens or young people would have been drafted. You know, because at 81, that wasn't on my radar. But like, I remember in the mid 80s, of course, like we were funding death squads in El Salvador, right? And I knew that like the U.S. was involved there with the School of the Americas and with the death squads. But like this idea of a teenager in 81 fearing that he might be drafted made it to a television pilot. Right.
And that's like the only cultural reference to anybody fearing getting drafted in the early 80s that at least I've ever encountered.
Yeah, it's very curious. And of course, they do spin, and that would have been Reagan's first year in office, right?
Right.
And of course, they do spin it as he's saying this to try and pick up girls, right? Like, well, I'm afraid I might have to go to war or something. So they kind of turn it into part of the plot, but it kind of sticks out. And if there's any reason that might have not been picked up as a pilot, could be something along those lines, right? Because that really was just like out of left field for a show that's avoiding adult topics to then, bring up the draft at a time when probably no one was thinking about it.
Well, I think also the fact they decided to make it an hour-long show, like I think if it was cut to 25 minutes, because it does start getting kind of repetitive, and I think also like with children's programming, you never want to give kids hour-long programming because none of them have the attention span for it.
Yeah.
Like even dramas that are pitched at kids are usually 20, 25 minutes. Cartoons and comedies, a lot of times they'll like cut down to 7 to 10 minutes, right? Because like a lot of those Cartoon Network shows, it'll be in 2 parts per episode, like Rocko's Modern Life or Ren and Stimpy or
Super Friends,
Fairly Odd Parents. Pretty much every cartoon I remember being on when I was a kid.
This feels halfway between children's programming and MTV, though.
Mm.
You know, and I think is it the same year that MTV is started, or is that the year after that we
I
get?
think
MTV?
it was the year after.
Because those
I think MTV was like 83.
the musical bits are kind of like music videos.
Mm.
You know, there's another one where Crispin Glover is with a bunch of girls at the mall or something, and they're dancing around with denim jeans. And you know, it also has this kind of like proto MTV quality.
Right.
MTV started August 1st, 1981.
81, same year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the first song?
Video Killed the Radio Star by the Boggles. And somebody, I don't know if it got taken down yet, but there was a video on YouTube of the complete first 3 hours that MTV was on the air, which was pretty crazy to watch. Like, you can tell they didn't have any money because it's just all like stock footage stuff, and then these like 4 music videos they'd been sent in. But
right. One of the hippest things that happens in Best of Times is when Crispin Glover goes into Jackie Mason's grocery store and he says, "I want to buy the new Talking Heads tape."
Yeah,
right.
And then he just starts playing it and dancing to it. And Jackie Mason's doing this shtick about, when you're my age, you just want peace and quiet, you know. But and it's supposed to be like Talking Heads is just noise to him. And it's so funny again, because it's like that along with the El Salvador reference. I'm thinking the folks that made this were, you know, a little bit hipper than the show they were making.
Well, that was the commercial peak of the Talking Heads, though. That was like Once in a Lifetime, and Remain in Light had just come out. I mean, maybe like, I think it was still 3 years before what's the concert movie?
Stop Making Sense.
Yeah, Stop Making Sense. Like, I think it's 3 years before that. But like, there's definitely, having bought and sold records for a long time.
Yeah.
Anything before then, you don't tend to see a lot of copies of, except for like there was a repress of the Talking Head 77, like at some point in the mid 80s. But yeah, like anything from the 80s, you see a lot of like I've bought and sold 4 or 5 copies of True Stories, Naked, Little Creatures, any of those like post Remain in Light albums, which would seem to suggest that people bought a lot of them, especially on cassette, because I always seem to find them on cassette, for whatever that's worth. I don't know how that necessarily, well, he is buying it on cassette. He's not buying a record.
He's buying it on cassette at what looks like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also kind of weird. You know, how many 7-Eleven, I mean, how many cassettes are they carrying at a convenience store?
Well, some of them you'd have that big basket full of remainders. For 99 cents for a cassette that you might not want to get if it wasn't 99 cents. That wasn't the case here. This was a brand new album that he's describing. Although I'm looking, and I don't think there was any new Talking Heads album in 81. There was one in 80.
Yeah, 80 was Remain in Light, and then I think, what's the next one after Remain in Light? I'd have to look that up, but yeah. I was never a huge Talking Heads fan, but it, you know, when you get the stuff in it, it pays the rent.
Is there really an elephant sound on the record? Because Crispin
on Remain in Light.
Well, whichever one they're listening to in the show, because he says to Jackie Mason, hold on, there's an elephant sound." And then sure enough, there's an elephant sound, which I assume was part of the record. Like,
oh, wait, no, 81. Okay, so it wasn't a Talking Heads record, but the Brian Eno, David Byrne record, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, would have just come out, but I really doubt that's what he bought at Jackie Mason's store.
That would have been very hip.
That would have been too hip for the TV. But that's, but no, it would have been Fear of Music or Remain in Light, unless it was like one that got reissued.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we're very fortunate that somebody recorded that and uploaded it to YouTube. However, what a tragedy that they edited out the commercials. This is the thing I always hate.
Well, if it never got picked up, then it might have been, because like usually if you find like an unaired pilot, the copy that got because like a lot of times the networks, they'll just send copies, like pre-broadcast copies, over to the Paley Center where they won't have the commercials in.
Yeah.
That might be what this is.
The version I watched on YouTube, you could see snatches of the commercials.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this clearly aired. Like this was taken from somebody's VHS recording, I think. And I always just wish they would keep that, you know?
Well, tapes were really expensive back then, though. Like I was talking to Bob
Yeah.
Thompson about this. He said it was like $24 not adjusted for inflation per Betamax cassette that he used to buy back in the day.
Yeah. That's why my dad would record everything on SLP, so you could fit 6 hours on a VHS.
Right, and then everything looks like
Yeah.
6th generation snuff film. Like you can be watching Sesame Street.
I did that for almost everything I recorded over on TV, or even when, well, I guess basically pirating videos. You get the two VCRs, connect them, play it on one, record on the other. Except for Brazil. Brazil, I played it on, is it SP?
Yeah.
Yep.
Standard play.
Yeah.
Anybody below a certain age has just fallen asleep during this part of the conversation. But I have to say, like, probably if and when I'm able to retire or whatever, I'm probably going to go through old VHS in my parents' archive to see if there's anything super rare that's worth sharing with the world. Because my dad recorded an awful lot off of television and cable, and some of that probably is valuable to see again. But
I had a bunch of stuff from TV, and I
well, there's a few things I'm looking for actually. If they're in his basement, I'm trying to find the first David Chase show. Almost Grown. It was on for like 9 episodes, got canceled. A lot of like licensed music in it, so it never got re-released, and like CBS just kind of pretends it doesn't exist at this point. But
that doesn't sound like my dad's jam.
Okay.
But this reminds me, have you heard of a documentary called Recorder, the Marion Stokes Project?
Yeah. I was following that when they were putting this stuff up on archive.org when they first were like, holy crap, here's like 30-something thousand hours of tapes.
Yeah. Is this kind of eccentric, independently wealthy Black woman from New York, I believe? And she started out as she was like a radical activist, like a Black liberation or activist or something. And she married this guy who was wealthy, and she was obsessed with cable news. And she started recording cable news all day, every day. And she recorded, would you say 10,000 hours or something? She recorded
like that,
30 years worth of television. And, she had like servants basically, like whose job it was to change the tapes all day. Yeah.
That's the reason I'm happy I wasn't living in that era, because that's there's like no rehab program for the problems I've got.
Yeah, I mean, I always considered it a challenge just to clear out my TiVo.
Right.
To do that.
That's what you'd get servants for?
Yeah. For
them to regularly clear out in the TiVo.
Hopefully I won't be needing servants for anything. Okay, so that's Best of Times.
Wait, I just want to know, would you all have, if it got picked up, would you all have watched it? Because I would have. I was sad that
I would have watched anything in 1981.
Yeah.
I had very low standards.
Well, I still do.
I would have been annoyed that they had a fat girl in it who wasn't very fat, who they still fat shamed. Do you notice that? Like, there was one girl whose whole personality was that she liked to exercise, but unfortunately it made her hungry.
Right.
Thanks a lot, people. Thanks.
And I was just still like a vague stirring in my dad's nutsack in 1981, so I had no choice in the matter.
Thanks for that image, Dan.
Dan,
I'm here for.
Actually, I don't even know if I could qualify it as an image, since I haven't seen your dad's nutsack. So I actually have to construct one in my head, and the one I've constructed is probably more vivid than the real thing.
Well, I mean, it wasn't in the list of topics that we weren't supposed to talk about that we talked about beforehand. So I figured it wasn't off limits, but
it's not an industry secret. Speaking of things we're not supposed to talk about, in Mank, they do really get into what Rosebud means. That's like the biggest secret going in that movie.
Yeah.
That's a spoiler for Mank.
Oh, okay. I still haven't seen it. I'm the only person here who hasn't seen it yet, I think, right? Or did you watch it yet, Ron?
2 out of 3 people in America have seen Mank. You're part of that third that hasn't.
Well, and one of us isn't in America that watched it. Yeah.
Somebody accidentally started watching it. That's what they're talking about. Like, 50% of those people, the algorithm just gave it to them.
There's one person in Europe that has seen this movie and Ron.
Yeah.
Well, all you need to know about that is, I don't know, 75-year-old Gary Oldman is playing a 40-year-old screenwriter or whatever.
Is he really 75?
I know.
Oh, but he's definitely.
Did they do the Irishman thing with him where they reversed his age?
They really should have. It's just, it doesn't make any sense because like he's clear, like Gary Oldman looks older than he is already probably.
Yeah.
And then he's playing
That's
a guy
like in his genes, right? That's like,
yeah,
it's
so
like
weird.
part of the name.
But I had to look it up, and Mankiewicz was like, I don't know, 40 or something. And yeah, it's also like, I don't know if you saw the Chicago 7 Aaron Sorkin movie on Netflix.
No.
Where they have Sacha Baron Cohen playing Abby Hoffman, and Abby Hoffman was one of the older yippies. He was 32 at the time, but Sacha Cohen's 49. You can't play a 32-year-old.
God, who did they have play Abby Hoffman in that other movie where like he hooks up with Janine Garofalo? What the hell is they steal this movie? I saw like 40 minutes of it on HBO, and then I fell asleep at some point when I was a teenager.
Sounds like it should be Sam Rockwell, but I know that's the Chuck Barris movie. So
right. That was the Chuck Barris movie is better than the Abby Hoffman movie.
Vincent D'Onofrio. Steal
wow.
movie was Vincent D'Onofrio as Abby Hoffman.
One of my favorite Twitter celebrities.
Is he that bad?
He's weird.
Okay.
He's a weird guy. He's a weird guy.
Ooh, Rip Torn's in it. Oh no, that's an ad for something else. Never mind.
No, that was last week's movie, Ron.
Right. That's why I brought it up. So.
Oh wow! I'm just glad I got the Crispin Glover episode.
Well, I mean, he did the last guest. He wrote 2 biographies of Mailer, so he was kind of asking for it.
Yeah, look. If you guys want to have me back on to watch Tough Guys Don't Dance, I'm in. But I can't do Maidstone or Maidenform or whatever it is. I can't do it.
It was a lot worse than I remembered. I remembered it being okay, and then there's a great hammer fight at the end, and you get to see Rip Torn act crazy for like 3 minutes, and then everything else is Norman Mailer like being a leather daddy.
If you want to watch Rip Torn like try to kill someone, just watch Freddy Got Fingered. It's more fun.
That's true. That's a movie we should cover at some point.
There you go. Freddy Got Fingered.
That's a great movie.
I hated that movie for the longest time, but I wasn't a fan of Tom Green, and I rewatched it. Matt suggested it. He showed it, and it's pretty good.
It's so fucked up. Yeah, like yeah.
I think I was less open to so fucked up when I was younger.
I didn't appreciate just how transgressive, or I guess I didn't appreciate transgression for its own sake when I was the age where I should have been watching Tom Green, because it was like every kid in school was like crazy about, like, I go into the high school and it's like, yo, did you see Tom Green humped a dead moose, or like Tom Green ruined his dad's car or something like that. I was like, oh, this is I'm too sophisticated for this kind of humor. I'm a whole 15 years old. I have seen the world in ways that these people around me have not. And then of course, now that I'm 30, I can appreciate it, I guess. But
yeah, I also
was 31.
That's
Gary Oldman
out in my 20s. So yeah, I did appreciate it, even though I some of the stuff Tom Green subjected his parents to was horrifying. I just had to keep telling myself that they were in on the joke, or they somehow deserved it because they raised Tom Green.
Well, he knew he could get away with it because they were like so Canadian.
Yeah. Yeah, they were very polite. They would just say, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
That's worse.
Yeah.
That's worse than being angry.
Yeah. So Twister.
Okay. So Twister, who wants to introduce this one?
I can try. So this is 1989. It's the feature debut of Michael Almereyda.
Mm-hmm.
It's an adaptation of a novel. I can't remember the name of the author.
Oh.
Something Mary Robeson or something.
Yeah, Carol. Yeah, this is terrible. But anyway, so it's Harry Dean Stanton playing a patriarch who's like a nouveau riche, like retired business mogul, and his company made soda pop that's like bright green.
Mm-hmm.
And he also
owned a
made,
bunch of mini golf courses.
yeah, he owned mini golf courses. And so he lived, and his wife is missing or dead or moved away. And he's raising his adult children who are played by Susie Amos and Crispin Glover. And then you have Dylan McDermott plays the ex of Susie Amos, and he's coming back to try and win her back, and they have a young daughter. And then for reasons that are not really explained, there's like a black housekeeper who is basically sort of like an adopted daughter or something. She's kind of a family member.
And she's like the favorite of Harry Dean Stanton, because she's the only one that's like actually an adult.
Yeah.
Although her paying her came up several times.
And what's that?
I say the fact that he's paying her a salary came up multiple times.
Right, right. And then the only other character is this woman who's she's like a television preacher and a children's show host. And Harry Dean Stanton gets engaged to her. Yeah. And I don't know. It's hard to summarize this movie because it doesn't have a very strong narrative thread. Yeah. It's just a bunch of vignettes kind of, and the centerpiece is a sort of tornado that we never really see.
Right, but it does set up a lot of great, I think my favorite thing about the movie as I was watching it that I remembered was these sort of like light Tarkovsky shots. Like, you know, in Stalker, there's those long shots of just like garbage with the bubbly water. In every establishing shot in this movie, there's like a pile of artistically arranged like debris and garbage in the shot.
Yeah.
Which I like. And then a lot of times, like whenever there's a romantic moment, there's usually a TV or some kind of movie audio playing in the background for whatever reason. Not that there's a lot of like genuinely romantic moments in this movie. Like these people are pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're necessarily like unrealistic, given like in my life experience with sort of like cases of arrested development in a family setting, but like they're very emotional. They're very impulsive. There's Dylan McDermott like burns down their entire shed to get rid of a beehive at one point. Oh god, what else they do? Like Crispin Glover makes a I don't know what Howdy's his name in the movie. He makes like tomato soup in a blender without the top on the blender.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of emotional like soup bowl turning it, like they like making messes.
And that sets up one of the better lines in the movie where they taste, I guess it's like gazpacho or something, and they taste it, and Harry Dean Stanton says, "I don't like it," and Crispin Glover says, "And it's an acquired taste." And he says, I hate when people say that. Why should I have to acquire a taste for it or something like that? You know, it's clear that some of those kinds of things must have come out of the book. You know, some of the specific lines, but and
there's the ultimate Crispin Glover moment in this movie when he's talking to his sister's like talking to him. He wants to watch TV, and what does she say? It's like something like, "Why are you so weird?" And then he just like smirks and it cuts. Like if I was Crispin Glover, my entire reel would just be that 30 seconds of film.
Yeah, I have to say, like the one thing that was funny about this movie is that at least 2 or 3 times the sister comments on Crispin's character being weird. And I think like that is a difference. Like most of the other movies he's in, nobody even remarks on it, right? And here it's actually part of the story. Like that he's like as you say, some form of arrested development, although the sister also is in a state of, and I guess even Harry Dean Stanton is, right?
Like even Dylan McDermott to a certain extent, but he's like he has some vague idea that like he should be doing something other than what he's doing, but like Crispin Glover, he like there's no leash, he's just sort of left off to do the craziest version he can do of like the like spoiled trust fund kid, basically.
Yeah. I'm glad that you keep saying Dylan McDermott because I keep wanting to say Dermot Mulroney. And apparently I'm not the only one who has this problem. I was looking at Letterboxd and people are always confusing these 2 actors.
Well, Dylan McDermott, he was on like CSI or something later, because I remember it was on something my mother used to watch all the time. So I found it I was like surprised he was in this movie, but then, you know, I got older and I realized that people do things for money.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to make of this movie, to be honest. Like, it really, my reference point for it was sort of like early Sundance quirk, you know, like it's a very quirky, it's sort of about this lovably eccentric family. But in terms of the storytelling, it doesn't give you much entry point, because it feels like for a while we're following the sister character, and then other times it feels like we're following McDermott's character, but it doesn't really stick with any one of those points of view for very long. And of course, Crispin Glover's mostly there for aesthetic purposes, right? And then out of the blue, Tim Robbins.
Right, and William S. Burroughs.
Yeah, and William S. Burroughs, yeah. Although I have to say that moment was like seeing William S. Burroughs handle a firearm. It felt a little tasteless. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. Shooting at targets, really?
It's funny you described him as a lovable fan, because I remember when I first saw it, probably because, like, I'm going to be honest, it resembled my family a little bit. Okay. And I was sort of like, oh, okay, this is sort of like Frank Capra. You can't take it with you. It's a screwball family, and they kind of learn to appreciate each other. Watching it this time, it seemed like a very bleak take on American excess. Like, the garbage everywhere is on purpose. All of these people, none of these people are likable outside of, like, they're given little moments of redemption, but they're not particularly great moments of redemption. And the end of it is literally like Harry Dean Stanton's character just leaves them, and it's like, take care of yourselves, you fuckers. Like, I'm done with it. It's yes, like if it's like Frank Capra's, you can't take it with you, but you might as well just leave anyway. Like,
he basically pays the housekeeper to raise everybody.
Right.
But McDermott thinks that he's going to be the patriarch, but he doesn't really know that it's all been taken care of. Yeah.
Right. And it just seems like, I mean, I guess given what America has come to in the past 4 years, I thought it held up pretty well. It was just a much bleaker movie than I remembered it being, because I kind of remembered it the way you were talking about, like quirky 80s indie movie, you know, kind of like Gas Food Lodging vibes a little bit, but more out there.
No, it's dark. I mean, even the setting, like, you know, like you kind of nailed the Tarkovsky thing going on with the sort of exteriors, but also the interior of the house. It's like, these are wealthy people with no taste, and they have like inflatable animals and tchotchkes everywhere, and everything is dark.
Well, yeah, there was like a shot that blew me away where they're all in the basement. It's this really short, I don't want to call it a tracking shot. It's like a pan. There's like 3 parts to the shot. Yeah. And just like one person sprawled out on this hideous looking couch, beanbag chair or something. And then the last part of the shot is just Dylan McDermott playing ping pong. And it's sort of like they're all in their separate worlds, but they're in the same room. And I would like to eventually see, because the only copies you can find of this now are pan and scans.
Yeah, I read that it was. What is it? I read that there was an HD version on Netflix or Amazon or something.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check it out. They might have
cleaned it up. It's a widescreen one too. So.
Because somehow I have a VHS and a DVD of this movie, and I did not buy either of them. I don't know how I ended up with. But the VHS, there's a great like fake Miss Cleo ad at the beginning. So if you're a VHS person, that makes it worth the price of entry. But
Miss Cleo, oh man,
right? It's like Miss Cleo's assistant going off on her own. It's got great like awful 80s video effects to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have it lying around. Maybe I'll like upload that to the nominee channel on YouTube.
Do you want to explain who Miss Cleo is?
So Miss Cleo is the 20th century Nostradamus, but unlike Nostradamus, she shared her talents with the larger population. Anybody could call her on a 1-800 number, and she would tell you, based on she had a large glass ball, and it would show you the future. Well, it would show her the future, and then she would interpret for you because she had that kind of gracious, giving spirit.
So there was actually an army of Miss Cleos. You'd call up that number. You were never actually calling Miss Cleo herself. They had, it was a Miss Cleo call center.
You were calling Miss Cleo's various housekeepers. She was like in Harry Dean Stanton mode by that point.
It's funny. That's very consistent with the time in which this was made and released, though. Television psychics, televangelists.
And I think it's interesting because the only Almereda movie that I've seen that like holds up as a coherent full movie. Like there's some interesting stuff because I've seen, I think, probably 4 or 5. There's that version of Hamlet he did where half of it, or seemingly half of it, is just Ethan Hawke walking through a blockbuster, and then there's that one that he shot entirely on the Pixel Vision camera, Another Girl, Another Planet, which he kind of prefigures in this one with all the distorted TV in the background shots. There's that great shot with
where they're kissing in front of the television and it's like totally engulfing them. Yeah, I like that shot.
Yeah, did you ever see Another Girl, Another Planet?
I don't know. Like I even like I have vague memories of these titles because also I wasn't sure if I had seen Twister, and then I think I've seen this film Nadja, which is also one of his early films. But I have a very
and that has a bit on the Pixel because the Pixel Vision, it was the cheapest, shittiest camera ever made. It would literally record video to an audio cassette. And so Another Girl, Another Planet, like it's in like 45p video. Like even on a VHS, it doesn't fill up the whole screen because if they blew it up that large, it would be unintelligible. And I don't remember that being very good. I remember watching it because of the Pixel Vision thing because I was like young, I was cheap, and I was like, yeah, this guy made the cheapest looking movie ever. I got to see this. And then Ray Carney really liked it. But you know, Ray Carney doesn't like budgets, so.
So the things that I was most impressed by when I looked at Almereyda's Wikipedia, anyways, was first of all he just finished a movie about the life of Tesla.
Oh, he did that.
Starring Ethan Hawke. I don't think it's come out yet.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard about that. Maybe there was another Tesla movie.
Yeah, no, this is
there's like a big cult following for Tesla now because people are into coil. My mother got really into coils in the last few years. She got one of those amp coils.
Yeah.
There's a review by a Hollywood Reporter from Sundance from January 28th, 2020.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean it was in wide release.
He also wrote the screenplay for Cherry 2000.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and he wrote the first draft of Wim Wenders' Until the End of the World and did uncredited work on Total Recall. So he's got some science.
He was involved with Total Recall?
Yeah, so like all three of those are basically science fiction projects. I mean, they're all kind of, cheeky to various degrees science fiction, but I think that's interesting, because maybe that brings it back a little bit to this slightly dystopian Tarkovsky thing that you're seeing in Twister, right?
Yeah, it seems like, because when I was on the road trying to make that movie, like the thing we pitched and got the money for was just, we're going to try to make a movie about what is America right now. And we found everything we were shooting just looked like the setup shot in a horror movie just over and over again. Like the guy never popped out of the background, but you just have this like eerie stillness in a lot of Culver's restaurants. Like, and I think he captures that well, although I'm also like a sucker for artistic depictions of piles of garbage. Like I love those like Adele Weber paintings from the 80s where it's literally just like broken Land O'Lakes boxes next to a drain or something like that. I just love like artistic arrangements of like decayed Warhols. That's like the thing I'm into.
Well, speaking of Warhols, our friend Crispin Glover, who would go on to play Andy Warhol in The Doors, right?
Shit, yeah, he was Andy Warhol in The Doors.
It was one of his big movies, like right around this time. But one thing that occurred to me while watching this is like, this is, seeing Nicolas Cage and Crispin Glover together in the best of times. What I was struck by was Crispin Glover. They're both very eccentric performers, right? And basically, Nicolas Cage just peppered his early roles with this eccentricity until he went full Baroque, like in his middle age, right?
Whereas there's like Vampire's Kiss. He's pretty much like full Nicolas Cage. Maybe that's like the first full Nicolas Cage movie.
I agree, but he still went back and did relatively normal roles, because also Peggy Sue Got Married was a little weird and stylized, but he still went back and did kind of more straightforward roles. And now he's just in complete gonzo mode. And I think Crispin Glover made a choice very early on that he was just going to do weird. And that's probably why like his only normie movie is Back to the Future.
Right.
And arguably like, I don't know, Charlie's Angels or something, but he's not, he basically just commits to the bit, And so like in this movie, you know, it's like he's got the Andy Warhol haircut. He's got a whip. He's playing a reverbed guitar, and he's already like just full on Crispin Glover at this point. I mean, he really is a special effect in this movie.
Right.
And like that makes it all the funnier that like when he has this romantic rival, it turns out to be Tim Robbins playing like some kind of macho guy. Because like, you know, Crispin Glover's character doesn't read as even remotely sexual, right? He's just like completely lost in his own world.
Right, like in a screwball comedy, he'd be like the foreign butler,
yeah,
or something like that. Yeah, but yeah, I thought it held up. I thought it held up pretty well. I got like sucked into it about 20 minutes in, and then I was just sort of like nodding, you know, like I was in nod mode.
What about you, Ron? Nod mode or nod off mode?
Oh, nod mode, definitely. Again, yeah, it took me a tiny bit to get drawn in, but it was pretty quick. But after watching it that one time, you had asked if I'd watched it yet, so that we could watch together. I wasn't sure if I was ready to watch it again so soon.
Not ready to have that meal again.
Right. It was a delicious meal. It was a delicious meal, but it wasn't a meal that I wanted to eat again. I needed some grilled cheese sandwiches.
An acquired taste. Why should I have to acquire it?
Right. William Burroughs has that line when they leave, and I remember it as like a kid, or not a kid, like a teenager, I guess. I could have sworn that was something he came up with, but it's actually a quote from Playboy of the Western World by J.M. Singe.
What does he say?
Shit, it's like, your mother left for breakfast and then was swallowed up by a clock or something like that. And then it just cuts. And, you know, and like coming out of William Burroughs, because I did have like a bootleg of him reading all of Naked Lunch at that point, and I thought like, this is so cool, you know, and now it's just sort of like, oh my God, this man could not modulate his voice to save his life. It's literally just like you could program a Microsoft Sam in William Burroughs' voice and it would be pretty convincing, because there's not a lot of just the tone never.
Yeah.
I guess you could call it a deadpan. But yeah, just imagine like 8 hours of him reading Naked Lunch. And
you could feed an AI like 30 seconds of it and it would generate the other 50 hours or whatever.
Right, like you could put him on tour as a hologram pretty easily, like more easily than some of the people they have put on tour as holograms post-mortem.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the movie was that for a tornado in the title, we never actually get the tornado. It plays a role in two scenes. You mentioned the scene in which they're in the basement. They went into the basement because of the tornado. But at that point, the tornado was already gone. Like, we never get the fear.
Isn't the tagline on the poster, it's like, there's a natural disaster at the heart of America. It's called the Cleveland family. Their last name is Cleveland. Which is kind of weird.
Right. And if you think about it, Crispin Glover's character, who is an aspiring rock star, his name is Howdy Cleveland.
Right. And this would have been right after he put out his first record with Barnes and Barnes.
Right. Hello, Cleveland. Howdy, Cleveland. I don't know. Could be.
Right. Home of Howard the Duck. That is the city.
Yeah, it's Crispin Glover's band is the one on playing over the closing credits.
Oh yeah, because it's the same bit that he's playing on the bed earlier in the movie.
Yeah, and it's a little bit Freddy Got Fingered. It's like his character's singing something about dad or daddy, and in a creepy voice with reverbed guitar. Mm-hmm. You know, there is this Oedipal antagonistic struggle going on between him and Harry Dean Stanton. If there's one weak spot in the film, I actually think it's Harry Dean Stanton. I don't think that he's not very present in the movie for some reason. And I know, you know what I mean?
I think it's because he can't stand his kids.
Yeah. It's just surprising at the end when it's like all of a sudden Harry Dean Stanton has this big decision to make. And I was like, I kind of didn't see it coming because they were sort of distracting me with the siblings. So,
but then like fittingly, his big decision is to not show up.
Yeah. The decision is just to abandon the family.
Yeah.
Great.
Tired of hearing how stupid his children are.
Right, then there's the whole search for the mother thing, right? Like they're sort of like, yeah, we don't need to get jobs or do. I'm doing like a terrible Crispin Glover impression right now, but we can go to Ireland and find our birth mother. And I guess if there is a plot, it's sort of like there's two, like I guess there's two major plot, or there's 3 plot threads, I guess, give or take. Like Crispin Glover has the girlfriend who's kind of like, I mean, I was gonna say a weirdo, but like Crispin Glover kind of has that on live. But she seems like the kind of person who would date the Crispin Glover character. Like they pulled that off pretty believably, which is, in retrospect, that had to be pretty hard to do because he doesn't really seem like dating material in this movie. But yeah, so the plot thread is like the daughter, Susie Amos, decides like, oh, we're gonna go to Ireland to find a birth mother. It turns out the mother's dead. William Burroughs doesn't tell him that she's dead. Harry Dean Stanton tells him that she's dead. Crispin Glover gets a girlfriend. And then Dylan McDermott tries to get his daughter back. So he's kind of like in the Liam Neeson Taken role in this movie.
And then there's Harry Dean getting engaged for some inexplicable reason to the woman from the TV show.
Well, I mean, she's cute and he's like 4 feet tall.
But she's
kind of got like a complex.
She has contempt for him, though. And there's this whole thing about how she's kind of a church lady character.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the people, like, given how he lives, like, he's probably used to women he dates having contempt for him by that point. Like, you just kind of figure it's part of the package.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you got that much money, like, you're probably, like, attracting these people that are only really there for the money. And so he's probably, like, rating it on a scale of, like, how insufferable is this person? There's not a lot of mature adult notions of, like, reciprocal love in this movie.
Yeah, the characters are all stunted in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the little girl will eventually reach that point.
Yeah, she seems like totally just like, yep, this is all happening. Cool. She like doesn't seem fazed by any of it.
Yeah, but Harry Dean Stanton is clearly worried that she'll turn out to be stunted too, because she's deliberately mispronouncing his girlfriend's name, and he corrects her. He's like, we're not going to have any of this foolishness,
Malarkey.
Yeah, because his daughter's an alcoholic and his son is Crispin Glover.
Right.
I think they say numerous points, is an artist or wants to be an artist.
Oh, yeah, because like when Dylan McDermott gets into the fight, or like he's like standing up for Howdy, he's like, Howdy, he's got a lot going for him. He's an artist. Because Crispin Glover's girlfriend, Howdy's girlfriend in the movie, she gets fired by Harry Dean Stanton. Dylan McDermott gets drunk and ends up in a hotel, and then she ends up being his, like, the maid at the hotel, and then she tries to sleep with him, and then he's like, no, I have an allegiance to these, I have this allegiance to, like, the 80s equivalent of the Bluth family, and I'm going to stand up for Crispin Glover being an artist because I'm still drunk. Like, he never says that when he's sober.
Yeah.
I guess any other thoughts on this movie, or should we move on to Willard?
Well, we didn't mention, I don't know if we mentioned, probably the key Crispin Glover image is just him cracking a whip in this movie.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty classic.
Wearing leather pants or something. Yeah, it was clearly like something that had to be in the movie,
Wait, and he has a whip as Andy Warhol in the Doors?
No.
Oh,
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I read that Almereda had him bring his own whip. No, I made that up. That's not. That's like r/shitty movie details fodder right there. But
yeah. So what was? Should we move on to Willard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What's Willard about, Ron?
It's about a guy and a bunch of rats. It's about a guy who he befriends one rat that's in his basement and ends up being able to lead a whole army of rats. Although there is one rat who sort of his nemesis, the biggest one, Big Ben. His boss is an abusive jerk. I don't know. I can't describe it. One of you do it.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. You got it.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't sure until I got that vote of confidence, but now that I know that somebody believes that I can synopsize Willard, I'm gonna give it the college try. Okay, Crispin Glover plays Willard. This is a remake of a 1971 horror movie. Willard.
Yeah, so you're already doing better than I was.
Lives with his mother and works at a company that used to be owned by his mother and father, but is now owned by that actor who plays like the same guy in every movie he's in, but he's really good at it. So I'm not hating.
You're talking about R. Lee Ermey.
Yeah, I didn't even know he had a name. I figured he had a name. Like
he's the real life Marine drill sergeant who was the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket.
Right. And then he's an Anchorman too, or something, right?
Yeah, he keeps playing himself in every movie, just like Crispin Glover.
And so Crispin Glover works at this place, and the drill sergeant guy, whose name I already forgot.
R. Lee
Ermey. He doesn't really like Crispin Glover because Crispin Glover's a little bit of a weirdo in this movie. Spoilers, but he's a little bit of a weirdo. And he kind of like goes out of his way to tease or make fun of Willard, aka Glover, throughout the earlier parts of the movie. And Crispin Glover is kind of pissed about this. But, he goes home and he has his like rat family in the basement. And then he finds out he's losing his job and he's going to lose his house, which means that the police and whoever are going to find this giant trove of rats. And so to get out the emotional stress, he starts playing favorites with the rats. And his favorite rat is this rat called Socrates. But he starts beefing with this other rat named Ben, who's kind of like the breakout star of the movie. Sorry, Crispin. But he's got this army of rats, and he starts like taking revenge on R. Lee Ermey. So he like goes over to R. Lee Ermey's house, and he's like, "Yes, my pretties." He takes them out of like a bowling ball bag, I think, or like a large purse. I couldn't tell. And he has him go in and destroy this like super expensive sports car that R. Lee Ermey is like bragging about at the beginning of the movie. And R. Lee Ermey gives this very on the nose dialogue about like, the corporate world is a rat race and you're all the rats, blah, blah, blah. In case we didn't understand, there was a political aspect to this movie. And and so the rat thing keeps escalating. And then one day Crispin Glover goes home and he finds like all the rats ate his mother. And he's like, "You fuckers." And then he just like,
well, she died first, I think. Yeah. Like they didn't kill her.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was like sweetening the movie in my head.
No, I think she fell down the stairs and then the rats.
Yeah, she was a goner though.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think she died. She died on her own. The rats didn't kill her.
She got sick like the night before. I don't know. How can I have forgotten this? Sorry, Dad.
I don't know. Maybe that was the movie I wanted to see, but anyway, we see rats like they're at the very least they're not going to turn down a free meal. Exactly. There's like a joke that my grandfather used to tell when we were eating about a camel. But I'm getting off track. But it's I may as well. I already set it up. So there's three guys. Their plane crashes in the desert. A plane crashes in the desert. The only survivors are three guys and a camel. Why is there a camel on an airplane? It took me 20 years to ask that question, and you're going to realize why when you hear the rest of the joke. So they're walking through the desert, and they get really hungry. And my grandfather, by the way, would only say this when we were eating. And two of the guys say, like, "Let's eat the camel."
By the way, I just want to point out that eating dinner during this movie was not a good idea. Okay, go on.
I did it.
I did that.
Oh, okay.
I went to like boot camp though, and but anyway, so they're like, "We're hungry. We want to eat the camel," and the third guy's like, "Yeah, that's cool, but you guys can do that. I'm gonna sit out." And so they don't have a way to cook the camel, so they eat this raw camel, and then they start like vomiting violently because they ate raw camel, and there's also nothing else in their stomach. And then the third guy, seeing this, says, "That's what I was waiting for, a hot meal." And then my grandfather would always say, like, "Is anybody still hungry?" And then he would eat the rest of the Chinese food. And that's eventually what killed him, not like a large armada of rats. But anyway, the rats are waiting for a hot meal to get back to
right. And they get a hot meal because eventually R. Lee Ermey pushes him too far. He steals his house and
steal it.
Yeah, he's trying to steal it. And then and so like Crispin Glover's rat problem. Like the rats literally take over the whole house, and he's having trouble taking care of them because Ben is showing natural leadership capabilities, capacities. There's a reason that when the original Ben got the sequel and Willard did not make it to the second movie. I can't emphasize how much I like Ben in this movie, but like the real life Socrates, the Socrates the rat gets killed by R. Lee Ermey without any specified charges. And then Crispin Glover gets kind of like, yo, you killed my rat, but he doesn't say that. He's like, he says it emotionally. And then like there's this woman that's kind of into him, and I'm never really sure why, because she could do a lot better, but it's like, oh, Crispin, let me live with. She doesn't know about the rats, I guess. I mean, he's not like a bad looking guy. He just seems like I don't know. Like I feel like. I don't know. I'm not a single woman, so maybe that's what they're. I mean, he has a house for the next week or so.
I would have tried to befriend him.
Like, look, not just any woman, Laura Elena Herring, who was probably most well known at this point for being in Mulholland Drive, and is basically
that's her. I knew I'd seen her somewhere.
Playing like a similar kind of character, like this kind of mysterious woman from The Office. But then her really only function is, to have some vague interest in Willard, and then also to bring him a cat, which also gives us the best scene in the movie for my money.
That was a pretty great scene. And so so the rat thing just keeps escalating. The cops get called, and then Willard's like, no, they can't come in because I'll lose all my rat friends. And then the rat friends all kind of turn on him, but I missed the part where they eat R. Lee Ermey. They like go into R. Lee Ermey's office.
It's a very thorough synopsis. We didn't do Twister nearly this justice.
Well, just to make clear.
Well, I watched this one the most recently, so I forgot half of the bed. The Best of Times thing I watched 2 months ago when we first made the plans to do this episode, so I didn't remember the El Salvador thing when you brought it up. I also had 5 cups of coffee before I came on tonight. I don't know if that's obvious, but...
Well, just to be clear, Willard takes the rats to the office to go eat R. Lee Ermey. They don't just show
It's like take your rat to work day.
Right. It's murder. He's calculated murder.
And also there's like a pointed scene earlier, like when R. Lee Ermey's car gets eaten, or like parts of it, the important parts get eaten, and he goes into the office and he's like, my fucking car, and everybody in the office is like, what a dingus, he deserved it. And there's this parallel in the movie between Ben leading the rats against Willard and Willard leading the office people against R. Lee Ermey. It's like one of those movies where there's like 2 plots, and they kind of like one's kind of like a Russian doll version of the other one. And
I have to be honest, like despite being a horror fan and a 70s movie fan, I had never seen Ben or Willard, and had only a vague understanding of what these movies were, and only really knew that there was a Michael Jackson ballad from Ben that was a ballad for a rat. And this all basically stayed for 48 years of my life somewhere in the background of my consciousness, that there was movies about rats with Michael Jackson, and one of them was a sequel to the other one, and I didn't know if Willard was the name of a rat or Ben was the name of a boy, or I didn't know any of that. So I'm entering this completely ass backwards. With the
I was telling Ron last night, I have Ben was the first movie I ever did the Mystery Science Theater kind of thing with my friends with, so I have like very fond memories of, I think it was the second to last Halloween I ever went trick-or-treating. Me and my 2 friends, one of them's dressed up as like a mall goth. I'm dressed up, I think I was dressed up as like Weird Al / the Unabomber composite sketch, and I forget what the other, or no, Zach didn't dress up because he was like, I'm too old for this shit, but I still want the candy. And so we walk around, we get the candy, we go to the drive-in movie store, and Zach's mom is like, okay, you can take out 3 VHS tapes, because this was like 2003, so you could still get, well, A, the drive-in, the rental store was still open, B, there was still like a pretty healthy selection of horror VHS there. So he took out Poltergeist, and I think it was we only watched 2 of them. There was Poltergeist and Ben, and we picked Ben because it was like there's this picture of this giant rat, and it just says Oscar nominee in giant letters on the front of it. It's like, we need to see this movie. And
but does the Oscar nominee above a picture of a rat?
Above and below, there's 2. There's like the star insignia badge thing, and then there's just like in block letters.
The song, right?
Yeah, the song.
Yeah, for the song.
Okay.
And
By the way, the song during the movie was the Michael Jackson version, but over the credits, that was Crispin Glover.
Yeah, but I still am having a hard time. Willard is the original film, right?
Yes.
So
Correct.
Ben's the sequel, but I guess Ben is the more famous movie, or what's going on?
Ben is the more famous movie in my head, but it was like on display at the video
Oscar-nominated one.
store.
Yeah.
And
I knew of
and
Ben. I knew of Ben. I mean, I'm not exactly into horror, but I had heard of Ben. I hadn't heard of Willard.
Oh, I guess I don't know. I always had the impression that Willard was the more famous one because it was the one that got remade, but that could be. I mean, I never like looked up anything about it, but Ben is amazing. Ben is like one of the best awful. There's like this fat kid with cancer, and he's like a complete dipshit. And like same thing as Willard, he's like with his mother. They can't afford any rat effects, so you can see like the bits of popcorn on everybody that the rats are supposed to. They're like the most docile, cute rats, and you're just like waiting for the rats to turn on this kid. And God, I mean, this is like 20 years ago I saw this, but like it was. I need to watch that again anyway. But
I would definitely be down to see these since they were apparently very important movies and yet still not very good.
I don't know if important is the right word. It's like a lot of fun.
Yeah, but what I mean is they made two of them.
Yeah.
So and the second one was Oscar nominated for a song by Michael Jackson. That's weird.
Oh yeah, and that's the only Michael Jackson record I still want in my collection. There's the Ben record, which is a full album that came out with that, and there's like the censored version, which is just young Michael Jackson's head, and there's a version of it that was on shelves briefly where it's this giant killer rat superimposed over young Michael Jackson's face on the sleeve. I would put that on a frame, like on the ceiling above my bed. Maybe not there. Maybe there's other empty walls in my house now, but oh my God, that's just like an amazingly awful record cover. That's like up there with like Louvin Brothers, the like Satan is Real record where they're standing on the pile of burning tires.
I think this is a fantasy that you've concocted. I don't think.
No, this is real. I can show you the Discogs page for it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, coming at it ass backwards. So I didn't know those movies. And so I just saw the remake of Willard. The first impression that I had was this is the kind of movie Tim Burton might have made.
Yes.
If he hadn't cheesed out, like, and gone into like Planet of the Apes territory, because it really feels like, and the music is very similar to like a Danny Elfman score. The whole sensibility of it really feels like Beetlejuice, Mars Attacks kind of era. I don't know if that's the same era or not, honestly, but that sensibility, like Tim Burton being dark, gothic, but still juvenile.
Right. On IMDb, it's listed as horror, drama, and thriller, but they left out comedy.
Yeah, it's a dark comedy.
Yeah,
yeah.
And like Crispin Glover carries this whole he's the only person in most of the scenes besides rats. Which, granted, the rats do have. They won my heart by the end of the movie, but I think I've made that clear.
Yeah, so I guess one thing I want to talk about is, first of all, he does have some great acting moments in this movie. The one that really stood out for me is there's a scene at his mother's funeral where this guy comes and it tells him that you might have to sell the house or something, and it's like he's also playing again a man-child, just like he plays in a lot of movies, and like he was clearly playing in Twister. And all of a sudden, he's just faced with this like financial responsibility, and his mom has just died. And he explodes at the guy, like, "Do you enjoy this? Do you enjoy telling?" I don't know. He has some way, but it's clearly like the man-child like boiling over from the pressures of adulthood. And he really nails that scene. But the other thing is, and I don't know, it feels like there's something going on here in psychoanalytic terms with these rats, because that whole thing about horror movies, if you take out the fantastic elements, then you can kind of figure out what is it actually about. It's like, okay, so he's just kind of in this state of arrested development. And again, like his other characters, he's also kind of like pre-sexual, or there's this.
Well, and it's even got, because like you ever read that like psychoanalytic take on Psycho, where basically like there's definitely bits of Norman Bates here, but there's like a take on Psycho where it's basically the basement is his id, the first floor is I think the ego, and then the attic is, or no, the first floor is the super ego, and the attic, I forget which one's what, but the basement's definitely the id,
right?
And the basement's definitely the id in this movie, and you also have a dead mother.
I was going to go further with that. I was going to say the rats are parts of the personality, right? So Socrates is like a superego. He sits literally on his shoulder, and he's like, it's like the angel and devil characters too, right? This is his higher self. It's the one that's like thoughtful, sensitive, more like rational. Socrates, right? And
right.
then
He only goes.
Ben is like this rampaging monster.
Killed.
What's that?
He only goes feral after the superego is removed.
Right. And then Ben is like this libido or id, right? And it's notable that like this whole conflict sort of reaches a boiling point when this incredibly beautiful woman at the work starts showing him attention, right? And then he has this, and then he's sort of emasculated by the boss, So I feel like, I don't know how it plays out in the original films, but this so clearly seems to be about some sort of thwarted, like, development, right? Like the mother is also like in Psycho, incredibly overbearing, and it's not really until she dies that he can fully unleash this side of himself.
And I feel like in most man-child movies, when the man-child has like up to and including 40-Year-Old Virgin and all those Judd Apatow movies, when the person has a hobby, the hobby is clearly positioned as a thing to avoid fear of the opposite sex or interactions with you could even say that about like certain superhero, like Spider-Man. He becomes Spider-Man anytime the date with Mary Jane is about to go too far.
Yeah, like that, something like that. Like the rats, he literally can't let this beautiful woman into the house because he doesn't want her to see his shameful rat situation, right?
And I related to that.
Well,
no, I cleaned up the house yesterday. It's not. There's no vermin. There's just TRS 80s.
Dan, I haven't had anyone in my house since March, so I would really be afraid if someone wanted to come in here right now. I would just be like, it's not normally like this.
Well, you painted
but I can't remember how it would normally be.
You painted like a giant mural on your wall of Crispin Glover to get ready for this episode of Anomaly, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have that kind of time. It's the third wave here, so just Okay, so this id superego thing, this is not so far from what you were saying, and you're right, Psycho is a definite touchstone here. But can we talk about R. Lee Ermey?
Sure, of course.
The guy so much fun.
He is so good in this movie.
He has like a sign behind his desk that he has like a motivational sign that's something like
aggression. I remember the word
aggression, like focused aggression or something like that. He's just like this incredible asshole character. But I remembered some detail that because he was discovered by Kubrick, right? And Kubrick basically cast him as himself for Full Metal Jacket. And I remember reading in one of these many stories about Kubrick's ways that he would test and humiliate his actors, that he had R. Lee Ermey practice his lines while being pelted with tennis balls, so that he would associate physical pain with his with those lines. And it seems like that's the same intensity the guy brings to everything. It was just really funny because, again, it feels like a movie where the casting is just special effects. It's like the woman from Mulholland Drive who just carries that mysterious energy into the movie. Crispin Glover is just Crispin Glover. And then Drill Sergeant Guy is doing Drill Sergeant Guy. And then what do you need? You just throw a bunch of rats in and you're done.
And a cat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that poor cat. That cat like goes in and the cat doesn't even like the cat tries to escape. I was surprised the cat didn't at least like go down Rambo style and take out a few rats before just like getting subsumed in the mass of Crispin Glover's repressed boners or whatever the rats are.
That was the only really moving part of the movie was the cat, and the cat trying to survive the rats. And climbing higher and higher on the furniture, and eventually, spoiler, being eaten by the rats.
It was a metaphor for climate change.
This Ben is also a very, very large and intimidating rat, and it did remind me of my favorite killer rat movie, also from the early 80s, so around the time of
Best of Times.
Best of Times,
the Best of Times, yeah.
Of Unknown Origin. Have you ever seen this movie?
No, I've been saving most of the killer rat movies for later in life, so I have something to look forward to.
So it stars Peter Weller as like this yuppie.
From the Jam?
No, from
Paul Weller. That's what I'm thinking.
From RoboCop.
Paul Weller. Yeah, Peter Weller. So he plays like this. I don't know. He's some corporate guy, and he and his wife and their kid have like a dream home or something. And his wife goes away on a trip, and he discovers a rat in the house, and he basically goes full on Rambo with the rat. And the director is George Cosmatos, who directed Rambo and Cobra. And it is like he goes full Rambo to kill this rat, and it's really one of the great killer animal movies. And
these have become like really relevant recently because there's all those reports out in New York City now because the rats got hungry, so they're like going above ground and they're getting ballsy.
They're attacking the people who are doing outdoor dining, right?
Yeah,
because
they're the only ones enforcing social distancing right now.
Yeah,
at least in this continent.
Apparently, it happened everywhere though. That I guess rodents and pigeons and stuff, they survive off of food that they find outside of restaurants and stuff like that. And so during the lockdown, they started like cannibalizing each other more than usual, right? So they had rats eating each other. And then when the lockdown lifted in New York and dining went outside, they had reports of rats attacking the patrons.
Oh yeah. I was into it.
Oh, I thought
earlier. There weren't a lot of news stories with somebody to root for in 2020.
There's murder hornets.
Oh yeah. I was totally into the murder hornets.
Yeah.
Killer rats. Like the seven plagues.
Yeah.
In the Passover story.
There was another thing that happened here in Amsterdam where my friend sent me this article, translated it for me, that because all the bars and like snack bars were closed during the lockdown, pigeons, a lot of them survive off of like, they find like French fries and stuff on the ground or whatever. But one of the details, and they interviewed a biologist, that they said that pigeons will actually eat vomit. And because they're
looking for a hot meal.
The bars, exactly. This brings us full circle. So the bars and snack bars were closed, so the pigeons were disappearing because their food source was gone.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, well, nature is healing.
First they came for the murder hornets, and we did nothing, for we were not murder hornets. Then
they came for the cannibal rats.
Oh man, I'm so excited for when we do a Halloween episode. Like it's not gonna be for a long time. But yeah, we haven't done we should do like our year-end. We were gonna do a year-end thing, and I realized I've watched like one new movie in the last year, I think. So like there's nothing to do. I could do like a top 10 list of like shit I want somebody to find in their parents' basement on a VHS tape. Top 10 things that shouldn't be on my floor right now. That could be a good, I don't know if that's enough to carry a whole episode, but...
Oh, you could talk in great detail about each one of those things.
There's like a Spider-Man telephone on the floor right now that's been there for 2 weeks because I just don't care.
Top 10 classic novels I still haven't read in quarantine.
Yeah. There's at least 10 of those. Well, I'm opening a bookstore, so I had to go through 60 boxes of books I had in storage and price them all out. I had like 10 boxes of mystery novels I was never going to look at until and like if all the old people die off, nobody's going to ever buy the mystery novels. So I'm the real victim here. But I don't know how that's going to work. It's like a restaurant bookstore that's opening during the third wave of a pandemic. I think that might be...
Could you just wait until a few more people are vaccinated, or until anyone is vaccinated?
Well, the restaurant people, they're opening it. I can't... Someday I will be able to tell this story. I do have a great story. So it's in this like bakery property my parents have owned for like 30 years. They tried to open a failed roasted chicken restaurant there in the 90s, but all the branding was because my parents, neither of them know how to cook. It was just like a terrible idea. It was an Arrested Development plot, basically. And so all the branding, they had somebody draw like this chicken with a space helmet because the place was called Planet Janet because my mother's named Janet. And space helmet, there's the cord that's supposed to be given the oxygen. It's just disconnected. You have this anxious looking chicken in outer space. It's like full Major Tom, but it's your lunch. And they hired this guy who was like a dance student at Skidmore to do all the cooking and the interior decoration. He painted all the walls black for the space theme.
Wait, can you still revive this? Because I have a tagline.
Go for it. Yeah.
In space, no one can hear you cluck.
That might have been, my dad still has the advertisement. That might be, that sounds familiar because I was like 6 at the time. So a lot of this I was just sort of picking up. But yes, they hired this guy named Nelson, and Nelson would get headaches, or he claimed he would get migraine headaches whenever something was wrong. And he had just a nonstop headache the whole time. Nobody ever showed up for the restaurant except we would get like 35, 60-year-old women every day for lunch. And Nelson would come out of the kitchen and hug each of them individually. And it turned out he wasn't making enough money with the restaurant, so he was moonlighting as a male stripogram. So these are all people that had hired him. And if he just stripped more, maybe the restaurant would still be in business. But
yeah, I was going to say the whole running a restaurant where you hug people, that model's not going to work for a while.
No, that's not going to work for a while. But yeah, it lasted all of 6 months, and then my dad went back to traffic accidents, which is that's where the real money is.
We're keeping the chicken in a space helmet logo though, right? We're sticking with that brand.
Oh yeah, because like that's what people want to think about, like death anxiety in their food. And well, actually, no, it's funny because there is a really successful restaurant about 5-minute drive away called Esperanto that's run by the Skidmore professor who is, now that Ernest Becker is dead, he's probably the world's foremost expert on death studies. And so all of his interviews are about doughboy snacks and death. And like every time I've ever seen him in public, he's been in sweatpants. Like he's an aspirational figure from my childhood.
But I'm still obsessed with seeing if we can save the brand. I'm sorry.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Beaks and books. How about books of a different feather?
I think the broster's still rotting in the backyard, so we might be able to do this.
El Pollo Libro. I'm trying. I don't know. Yeah.
Los Pollos Mortados. You know, get that Breaking Bad crowd.
Kentucky Fried Books. Speaking of, you know that Kentucky Fried Chicken released a Lifetime original movie today.
Oh, it was today.
Oh shit. That was the kind of thing. That's why I should start keeping a calendar, not like employment or.
It was like today at noon, wasn't it? Noon Eastern?
Yeah. And you know what's funny about this is like, this is on the one hand, like my immediate response when I heard that some marketing genius had decided to do a meta ironic, like fake Lifetime movie to sell us Kentucky Fried Chicken. I was like, oh yeah, that's those rubes. Whoever's going to fall for that and buy more KFC, you know? But then I thought, no, I'm exactly the guy this is targeting, because I was like, oh, you know, I should watch Mac and Me again.
Yeah. I've been like,
all of a sudden, I just wanted to watch bad commercial product placement movies.
I moved back home. I basically got like divorced light. I don't feel like cooking for myself. There's a KFC Taco Bell down the road. And this is the sad part of the story. I never get there early enough at night where the KFC part is still open. But I have eaten way too much fucking Taco Bell in the last
they're
like
open
2
for
weeks.
Fourth meal,
and the KFC is. I tried to order KFC, and the lady behind the drive-through thing was just like, "The fuck? KFC closes at 9, you asshole." She was just like,
"You're missing out on getting a Taco Bell burrito with the KFC mashed potatoes."
That would be sweet. I would eat that. I ate a spaghetti taco once because Lizzie McGuire did it.
It's funny, you know, this is also there's not a song yet about the combination Taco Bell KFC. There's a song about the combination Pizza Hut Taco Bell.
Yeah, whatever happened to those guys? What the hell were they called?
Das Racist.
Yeah.
I don't know. I follow one of them on Twitter, but I don't know. More probably what happened to me is probably the real question.
Well, you're slowly
stopped
turning
listening
into
to music.
Crispin Glover's top right now. You're like being absorbed by his white suit.
I'm like a head popping out of his torso.
You look like you're in a movie about like you and Crispin Glover conjoined twins.
Right. And Michael J. Fox is saying, "Holy shit, what time is it?"
Uh-oh. I got to get Crispin Glover laid or I won't exist.
Yeah, and I have to invent rock and roll.
Right. That's like that movie. I watched that again probably like 5 years ago, and there's so much like the fight. What's his face? The
Yeah.
doc.
Oh.
It's like
yeah.
selling arms to terrorists at the beginning of the movie.
Iranian terrorists.
Iranian terrorists.
Libyan. They're Libyan nationals.
Libyan.
I
Okay,
just
wow.
watched it earlier today.
Oh, right. Ron, do you just want to give us a synopsis of Back to the... I'm just kidding. Please don't.
Right. Everybody remembers the gadgets, but there's all this weird Freud shit, and then the implication that like Chuck Berry stole rock and roll from the shortest, whitest kid of the 1980s.
Yeah.
Not even Chuck Berry. It's like his brother calls Chuck Berry and says, it's like Chuck Berry's brother or something says, yeah, it's bad.
Cousin. Yeah.
Cousin?
Yeah. I forgot.
Why am I trying to remember? Ron just saw it.
I just saw it. So I forgot that that Michael J. Fox actually does briefly make out with Leah Thompson, his mom. And then she said,
right, that movie's like pure Freud. That's more Freud than Psycho.
Yeah.
I was wondering if this movie were made today, would it be made for the same audience?
People that want to make out with their mother, that's trending on the internet. I don't know if you check search statistics in the United States, but people are apparently really into that. Like after she gets like caught in a piece of furniture, that's like everybody, there's probably like some kind of deep psychological PhD thesis one could write about people getting obsessed with women stuck in dryers and furniture in the middle of a quarantine and a pandemic, but deep might be overstating it, but they probably let you pass just to get you out of the program.
Do you want to know how deep I am into the pandemic?
How deep?
I mean, you're about halfway into Crispin Glover's, so oh yeah, you just like disappeared.
I'm gonna. I don't know if I'll be able to show you this.
Will we be able to describe it?
Let's see. You know what? I can't do it because I'm on Ethernet. I actually can't reach there. But Ron, I finally hung up the glossy photo of Adam Sadowski.
Oh.
He's looking directly at me from across the room. Yeah.
So as you lie in bed, you're staring straight at Adam Sadowski?
I just realized no one is coming into my house, so no one is going to say like, why is there this picture of this kid like on your wall? Because it's just like a private joke. Like basically anything in my house is just a private joke for myself now, right?
Right.
What I had for breakfast, what I have on the wall, you know. I mean,
it's an inside joke of one.
Yeah.
My friend he's still living in Texas, for his birthday, because he was really into the Hercules TV show back in the 90s. I found this framed promotional still of Kevin Sorbo at a thrift store for like $1.
Yeah.
And I gave it to him. He tried to ditch it 3 times so he wouldn't have to bring it on the plane. And his brother helped me sneak it into his luggage. And so he's still got this thing, and then he gets evicted from his house that he's living in, and he clears out the house. The only thing he left was he taped the Kevin Sorbo picture to the ceiling of the bathroom for whoever moved in next. So yeah, that's life goals, I guess.
Oh. Another great Twitter celebrity, Kevin Sorbo.
Oh yeah, he's like gone completely nuts, right? Yeah. Like he's like Ben Stein level now.
Yeah, or like James Woods.
James Woods went. Well, I don't know if James Woods always was. James Woods is basically like turned into the character in Videodrome at this point. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's another movie I haven't watched in way too long.
Great movie.
Yeah. It's such a great movie.
No, I think James Woods was always right wing, though. I remember that from way back. But yeah, he's super creepy too, though. He's just sleazy.
Yeah, I mean, like, and he played Roy Cohn in a movie, right? Citizen Cohn, like years and years ago.
Yeah, you always wonder about the psychology of that. Did he think he was in like some like celebratory biopic? Like, did they just tell him to play it straight?
I remember when my dad got really depressed when him and my mom were kind of like on the outs and he started hoarding VHS tapes. It was like he had this stack in his living room. It was like up to the ceiling. And half of it was probably like video because he gets videos in the mail from all the car manufacturers of all their cars crashing into a wall because he actually needs that for work purposes. But the two top things on it was Citizen Cone and then that movie where like John Travolta, like basically the races are reversed in Detroit in the future, and John Travolta is like the stereotype of a broke black guy. Oh, what the fuck
I
is
don't know this movie.
It's so bad. It's not called Black and White. It couldn't. That it's too obvious.
I'm gonna look it up.
Black and White is a James Toback movie.
But yeah, I think it was like straight to HBO or something. But yeah, he's like in Detroit, and it's like he's like struggling to make a living. But then there's this capitalist fat cat played by a black guy, and it's like I think it was trying to make an earnest point, but it just comes off as like this underachieving version of the Turner Diaries. And
It's called White Man's Burden.
Okay, yeah, even worse.
Does this have Harry Belafonte in it? I have a vague memory of this.
Let's see who's in this. John Travolta. Yeah, Harry Belafonte. Oh yeah, it's John Travolta opposite Harry Belafonte. Yeah.
It's not a Scientology movie.
Not that I could tell.
Okay.
I mean, maybe that was in like the part that got pan and scanned. It was just all on the edges of the frame.
So your dad had a pretty random collection of VHS there.
He would literally go to the local record store before they closed, which was called Last Vestige. They were getting rid of all their VHS tapes around then because you know, like any record store, you're gonna end up.
They were called Last Vestige.
Yeah, great record store when they were open, but like for records, not so much for VHS. Although I got some good DVDs there when I was a kid, but and they would literally, he would go to the counter with like 25 of them, and they'd be like, "Hey, if you take another 25 of these, we will half off everything." And they were like 50 cents a piece at that point. Wow. And he would just bring them. There was like the Eddie Murphy Blackula kind of thing, a Dracula in Brooklyn or something.
Yeah. This is like bad stuff.
Because like his favorite movie of all time is The Mummy.
The Boris Karloff Mummy. No,
the Brendan Fraser Mummy.
Wow.
I think he's the only. We put out that call a while ago. Like, are you the only person in the world? Do you think you're the only person in the world who loves this movie? And my dad actually does probably fit that qualification.
I mean, I know one other person who does.
I think I liked it. But to make it your favorite movie, that's something.
When you had that many movies too, like it wasn't he wasn't like at a shortage of movies.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been White Man's Burden or Citizen Kane or one of those crash test videos.
Oh, I used to love those things when I was a kid, though. It was like the crash test dummies shit without the crash test dummies. It's just like an action movie with just the money shots. God, I wonder if he still has those in his basement. I would love to.
Yeah, they got to go on Archive or YouTube.
Yeah.
You got to get up there. Okay, so what movie were we just talking about?
White Man's Burden?
No, we were off of that. Oh, The Mummy.
The Mummy, yeah. Okay. Brendan Fraser, The Mummy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm lost. VHS in general. Okay, so like he was getting these crazy good deals, but the movies were shit, right? I just remember there was a period where I was selling off a large media collection, and you could barely give away VHS. I think
still can't.
I used to go into Amoeba, and it was like it was a point at which they would give you a quarter for VHS, and then it went down to like a nickel at some point, and I was just like. And I think it's only if it's out of print and it's not on DVD. If it's not on DVD, then it's worth something.
There's some that are worth something for a stay. So I have a few sealed Blockbuster blanks. Those are worth like $10 a pop. There's some horror. I have like a horror movie that's a promo thing that's got like a hologram on the front of it. It's worth $25 because of the hologram.
Yeah, but isn't it just any movie that didn't make a jump to DVD or Blu-ray? It's worth a little something.
And there's some horror movies where it's for the aesthetics of the box. Like if it's in a clamshell and it looks really shitty, even if it's not necessarily. There's certain because like now that I have and also there's one that I have that's worth like $40 that's just like animations of fractal patterns from the 90s.
Okay.
Although that fits in the it never made it to DVD category. Or like I have, oh God, there's a few things. I think we mentioned this on the show before, but I have the only known copy of Scotty from Star Trek's like promo video he was sending to old age homes to do talks at them.
You know what you both have? You both have that
Library
one about the one about sharp objects.
surviving edged weapons.
Oh, I don't have that, but I watched it with Alex Miller
I just have
on the
file
other
for it.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just on Vimeo. You can just download it. But Ron gave me a VHS that I had on my wish list, and I still haven't been able to watch it.
Oh no.
No, I can transfer. I got a transfer setup going on over here.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's called Adventures of the Library Cat. How much did you pay for this, Ron?
What was that?
How much did you pay for this?
I don't remember. It was
Because I thought it's out of print, and it must have you paid more than $20, I think.
probably. Oh yeah. I mean, it wasn't too much, but yeah, more than
Okay.
$20.
So the reason I know this movie is I used to work at a video store in Los Angeles, and it's just a short documentary about this. It's about library cats in general, but then it follows one library cat in particular, and just about how cats bring joy to libraries. But then it gets a little dark because this one library cat that everyone loves, there's a woman who has a phobia of cats, like this elderly woman, and she basically sues the library, and they have to remove the cat from the library, and that's how the movie ends.
No.
And they have like,
Did they feed it to the rats afterwards?
No. It's not quite as fantastic as Willard, but and the whole time the cat, like, they have this terrified like voicemail or answering machine message from this old woman saying how scared she is of the cat, and then they'll have like cutaways to this very adorable cat who's like oblivious to all of this drama that's going on.
$6.
$6?
I paid $6 for it in 2019.
And how much for the plane ticket? And then I'm just going to send it back to Dan so he can rip an AVI.
Wait, that $6 included $3.
I can rip like any format you want. I got. I was trying to do this professionally for a while until I realized the old people don't care about their memories anymore. We should join forces at some point because I want to start doing my Festivus parties again, but I'm old enough where like I can't just say like shitty Christmas movies and serial killer cookies and get people to show up at my house anymore. But I have this enormous collection of shitty Christmas stuff because I used to program a whole like 2 movies usually per year, and then we had like the feats of strength and the airing of the grievances until it got it's 1 year.
I do want to plug our online Christmas program, so maybe you don't have to edit out.
Before you do that, can I just ask one thing? Or could I just think Santa and the ice cream bunny? Is it the 1972 cartoon or the version with
It's live action, but it's
live action. It was shot in an amusement park for like 4 days. It's kind of like Manos Hands of Fate style.
You can rent it for $3.99 on Amazon Prime.
On Amazon, right? It's not worth $3.99.
It's so slow and druggy. The one I never got to see that I wanted to see was the Magic Christmas Tree, and then there's one with Brian Benben and aliens from like 1992 called like We Come in Peace or something like that, where there's a Christmas element to it.
Ooh, yeah. I would like some advice here because I'll tell you what we're doing. So, as you know, Cinema of the Damned closed our cinema back in, we've been closed since the pandemic started, but we finally closed in October. And now we're completely online. And for Christmas Eve through Christmas morning, we're doing an 18-hour marathon of horrible holiday movies.
Oh, shit, dude. Is the whole thing figured out yet? Or
No, it's not all figured out.
Oh, okay.
So actually, I would like some help. So it's called X-Mess. It's the name of it, but it's a little bit of a cheat because it's going to include some movies that are actually technically good but are just inappropriate. So for instance, we're going to show Christmas Evil as our centerpiece, which I think is an actually really good movie. And my co-programmer Jennifer wants to show her favorite Christmas movie, which is Less Than Zero, the Bret Easton Ellis movie. So we'll have a couple of movies that are actually good, and then there'll be things like Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny.
Are you doing Mexican Santa Claus?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Love that movie.
and we're gonna do the Jack Frost with Michael Keaton,
Okay.
which is absolutely bizarre. And what else do we have in there? Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Yep, I got that on VHS.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's 18 hours. So
there's a great clip on archive.org. It's like this 12-minute clip. This guy's doing a Punch and Judy show at a children's orphanage, dressed as Santa Claus. Like you've seen a Punch and Judy show before, right? They're just like the puppets and beating the shit out.
Yeah.
And it just keeps cutting to these kids having these horrified reactions because it's clear that like Santa Claus is just reminding them of why they're in the orphanage.
Yeah,
the whole time with this puppet show, and that always stuck with me. Shit, what's Magic Christmas Tree is one you should definitely look up.
I've heard of that one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you have anything that you think, you could, I mean, what it's going to be is it's going to be an 18-hour stream where I push play at noon on Christmas Eve and it runs till 6 a.m. on Christmas Day.
Yeah, let me see what I got later, because I found like most of the DVDs I had in high school were still in my dad's basement when I moved back. So I had a lot of this stuff.
And there's some stuff I haven't looked at yet. There's something from a TV movie from '72 called Home for the Holidays, which is supposed to be a really good Christmas horror movie. So it's a little mixture. There's going to be some Christmas horror, and then there's just like Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny stuff, which is just
Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yeah, we're showing that, and I got a pretty good version of that one.
Shit, what are the other good? I mean, there's if you go into like bad holiday episodes, so there's the Pac-Man animated series holiday special, which is like awful.
Plus, you kind of have to know what the original like. I feel like the problem with holiday specials is you have to know what the show formula is. And what is the Pac-Man animated series show formula? Like, what is it normally?
It's just like he has adventures in Pac-Land. He eats dots. See, most of these, because I remember when I was a kid, there were a lot of shows where they would only show the holiday specials because they needed program fillers. So there's a lot of shows where I only know they exist from the holiday specials because that's the only time they'd air episodes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a good way to watch them because like the less context, the better, especially with the Pac-Man thing's just like fucking weird. I think there was a holiday episode of Rubik the Amazing Cube.
Oh, God. They're selling toys, right? They're selling toys. I mean, I'm also looking for like commercials, holiday commercials, weird local newscast stuff, public access. And there's people that have deeper archives than me. So like, I should mention that like, and you probably already know this, but it's good for the listeners. Like there are a number now of Twitch streams run by people that have very eccentric sort of tastes, programming tastes. And they're all operating sort of in the gray area in terms of like rights and stuff like that, right? But my friend in Los Angeles runs one called Museum of Home Video, and they just have really amazing programming because he's got tons of rare stuff that he's been saving for a long time. There's another one in LA called Cathode Cinema that does like they'll pick a theme and do like 8 movies, and then they'll run that program twice, and it's always the weirdest stuff. Like they did a 8 movie marathon of movies about toxic waste disasters. So like
so I have a VHS. It's not explicitly Christmas themed, but it all takes place in the winter. It's called Extreme Bucks 2. It's basically one of those hunting videos, but they're not hunting. They're just like stalking these deer and waiting for their antlers to fall off. And it's like weirdly soothing and calming. Like it's like slow. There's like a Zenabed. There's like the little bear thing where there's no conflict. It's just this guy saying like the points on the rack excite me.
Wait, what is the holiday angle?
Oh, because they're all in the snow, so it's like it looks very Christmassy to me. I don't know. I'm a Jew, so like the
right. Well, hey, also interested in Hanukkah content. It is called.
There's not a lot of it, but yeah, there's like 8 Crazy Nights, which is not fun bad. It's just bad. There's
good. Yeah.
There's not a lot of Hanukkah. Like there's.
Dan, can you do transfer from Super 8 to digital?
I am working on that. I actually have a broken Super 8 camera that has a VCR attachment you put it into.
Okay.
It's like super rare, but nobody gives a shit.
Because I made, when I was in high school, I made a 3-minute Super 8 film which ends with Santa decapitating Rudolph and a snowman and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, we should show it.
and a snowman, and he's dancing around a Stonehenge made out of cards in the snow, and it's all to Ode to Joy. Okay, what were you
That
saying?
sounds fun. Oh, so there's that short film that William S. Burroughs narrates that he, I think he's working with the Disposable Heroes of Hip Hopocracy, if you remember them.
Yeah.
And so he's, it's called Junkie's Christmas. It's weird. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just weird, but it has Christmas themes.
We're also going to show. I'm going to write down Junkie's Christmas. Oh yeah, it's
I'm
21
looking
minutes.
at bad Hanukkah movies.
So we're going to show.
Has there ever been a good Hanukkah movie?
Probably. Oh God, the first one in this list. This is best Hanukkah movies, and the first one is 8 Crazy Nights. Ooh, this is interesting. Full Court Miracle. Disney Channel based this original Hanukkah movie on the real story of Lamont. Oh, no, okay, it doesn't matter. It's based on a true story.
So look, there are actually Christmas movies that I really love besides Christmas Evil. Like I actually do unironically love to watch It's a Wonderful Life every year.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but we're really committing to the bit with this one, so it's going to be bad. But one of the ones I'm really excited to show is a French movie called Dial Code Santa Claus. Do you know about this movie?
No.
So it's like a children's action thriller that was likely the inspiration for Home Alone. It's about a rich kid who uses a primitive version of the internet, because I guess in Europe they had something that was like it's like a phone booth kind of version of the internet where you would go on to like, message boards or whatever. So he tries to contact Santa Claus, and who he actually contacts is some kind of deranged homeless pedophile who then tracks the kid to his house. But the kid is obscenely wealthy and he's at home alone, right? And he has all of these gadgets. And basically this Santa Claus tries to come in and kill him. And the kid like puts on Rambo makeup and starts setting booby traps. And it's all shot like a 80s action thriller.
I was waiting for the Saw movie where Tobin Bell takes his face off and it turns out it's actually Macaulay Culkin and that's just what that kid grew up to be.
Yeah. This director swears that they ripped him off though for Home Alone, and I don't know. It's hard to say because Home Alone it's definitely indebted to Straw Dogs. Yeah.
I mean, but Christopher Columbus, like he's renowned for originality.
Yeah.
Hey, Call Me by Your Name has a Hanukkah scene in it.
Okay.
Just show the scene.
Yeah, just the scene.
That would seem kind of tokenistic.
Rugrats always had because the Rugrats family's supposed to be Jewish, so that's like the only Hanukkah special I remember seeing as a kid. And they had a Passover special that was pretty awful.
Yeah.
Geez, every one of these lists has the exact same movies.
There aren't many of them. Nobody.
Oh.
No, it's actually there's a very short list of even of Christmas horror movies, right? I mean, there's not that many.
Oh, there's Santa Sleighs. That was okay. I saw that 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's also Rare Exports, which is a good movie actually. Scandinavian kind of fantasy film, which is also about a sort of killer Santa Claus thing. So there are these movies, but there's not that many actually. And if you haven't seen Jack Frost with Michael Keaton, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, that's a great movie. Well, great.
Oh my God.
It scratches that itch.
I saw it for the first time last year, and I just couldn't believe what I was watching.
Oh, there's Jingle All the Way with Phil Hartman and Sinbad. That's pretty terrible, but
Wait,
not.
Isn't that the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger too?
Oh yeah, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I forgot that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in that movie. I think there's a Christmas component to Small Soldiers too, but I think Small Soldiers is actually a decent movie.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to show a couple of good movies because I can't imagine watching 18 hours of stuff that's about as bad as Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny.
Gremlins is a holly, that whole monologue about Santa going down the chimney and then his neck snapping thing. That was
But Gremlins 2 is also very, very good.
Is there a Christmas aspect to that one though?
Birthday story.
I think it's also Christmas.
Okay.
I can't remember. There's a Trump angle in Gremlins 2 because it's supposed to be like Trump Tower where it all happens. I don't know. Like I'll probably end up with too much stuff that I want to show, but that's fine.
Clamp. That's the guy, the Trumpian guy in Gremlins 2 is called Clamp.
Okay. Yeah.
Why do I remember this?
I don't know.
With Dan, have you seen Gremlins 2?
Yeah, long time ago.
I used to have one of those the big cardboard displays at movie theaters. I used to have the one from Gremlins 2 in my bedroom.
Yeah. I really loved Gremlins, but someone ruined it for me pretty shortly after it was released, because they have those rules like don't expose them to bright light, don't get them wet, and don't feed them after midnight. And I don't know who it was that pointed out that it's always after midnight.
Yeah.
and like once they said
I never thought of that somehow.
And then it just ruined it for me. I was like,
no, they talk about that in Gremlins 2.
Oh, so they correct for that.
Yeah.
Well, that's sort of like that theory that like Indiana Jones doesn't need to be in the first Indiana Jones movie. Like nothing he does impacts the narrative at all, right? Because they would have all seen the Ark of the Covenant anyway. So he's just sort of like there to impress chicks.
Yeah, and shoot people. Yeah.
I used to work at a movie theater when Gremlins 2 came out, so I watched it a lot.
Oh yeah, Ron, I forgot to mention, we watched Robert Aldridge's Kiss Me Deadly the other night, and I forgot to mention that when I was lecturing on it and to my students, like also the briefcase with the spoiler alert nuclear bomb inside of it or whatever. That's also the inspiration for the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Well, I was thinking about the car and Repo Man, but maybe I'm just thinking about like bright lights coming at us.
That too, and also in Pulp Fiction, the briefcase. But like the point is like what happens? The woman catches on fire, right? It's the same thing. The Nazis open up the Ark, and their faces start melting off.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. It's like the box that's not supposed to be open.
Oh yeah, that's a movie. I saw that in a theater a few years ago. That was like that's such a great movie, Kiss Me Deadly.
Yeah,
I still need to see what happened to Baby Jane. Maybe that'll be a fun project this week.
That's a great movie. It is let's just put it this way, like that movie feels like a nightmare. Like there's something about it that is super uncanny. Yeah.
I mean, I watched like 18 episodes of the 2001 Ellen show this week to get ready for an episode on Mitchell Hurwitz. So anything after that's going to be uplifting. Like that show is so awful. Oh my God. Like they wasted so many. They got like Martin Mull, they got Jim Gaffigan. I don't feel like they even got Mary Tyler Moore and Ed Asner in an episode together, and it was terrible. It was still like it's a Christmas episode, so that's awful Christmas, but it just was like awful in the sense of like that was 25 minutes of my life and I'm gonna die someday, not like, oh God. But yeah, don't watch that. Oh, so bad. I don't know how he went from that to Arrested Development like immediately. He must have been like saving up all the ideas or something. But
speaking of Crispin Glover,
he had one masterpiece in him.
Yeah, that seems to be what happened, because the other show that I like, we found. Well, I'm going to spoil the episode we want to do on it, but there's basically a show he did that was only on for 4 episodes. It's literally a first draft of Arrested Development called Everything's Relative that we were going to cover, and that was actually pretty good. But yeah, like everything else, it's just sort of he had one hit in him, and everything else has just been kind of awful.
Mm-hmm. What were you going to say, Ron?
Oh, just speaking of Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover. Yeah. Whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know. I think he's still making occasionally.
Yeah.
I think that.
Well, Dan, you've seen a few of them.
Yeah, so he directs movies on his own. Yeah, I was going to talk about that, and then we got sidetracked with VHS tapes like we always do. And
we're always getting sidetracked by VHS tapes.
So I saw him for 2 nights live in New York City at the IFC Center because my old roommate was, and she worked there for forever, and basically like we had this arrangement where she could get me in there I figured out how to be like a movie mooch when I was in college because I didn't want to work for a living, and I still have mixed feelings about that, but anyway, but yeah, he showed 2 movies that he directed. The first one is What Is It? And then the second one is, I believe it's called It Is Fine, Everything Is Fine. Both super weird movies. And he did like a 2-hour Q&A afterwards, and apparently he has like a shed in his backyard that he does up as like these intricate sets for these movies, because the sets look really, they all have this like miniature dollhouse quality to them, which I guess is just him redecorating this room over and over again. And I thought the first one wasn't very good. The first one, it was just sort of like a lot of shocking stuff. Like he plays that Rebel Johnny, that super racist. Oh God, what's the song called? Like it's the most racist song in the 1960s.
Yeah, doesn't it also have like Adam Parfrey and blackface and?
Yeah, there's just a lot of like it's like all the stuff that Harmony Korine cut out of like the movies when he still had enough ideas to cut things out of them.
It's like edgelord stuff, like, and he has developmentally disabled people playing characters. Is that the one, or is it the second one?
Yeah, it's totally the like, because there's like that footage of Harmony Korine tap dancing in blackface that was, I think it was on MTV at one point. He like got that on there somehow, but he was like obsessed with blackface for a hot sec.
Yeah.
Glover?
Before he no Harmony Korine, the guy who did Gomo and Julian Donkey Boy, and then a lot of crappy movies. Or no, Mr. Lonely was a decent movie, but like,
hey, we're gonna fight here because I love Trash Humpers. I love Spring Breakers.
Oh, I hated Spring Breakers. I could not stand Spring Breakers. All right, let's go.
Great masterpiece. Watch it again.
Okay. I mean, I wanted like it. I will say, like, Julian Donkey Boy is a legitimately great movie. Gummo is a legitimately great movie. Trash Humpers seemed just like Trash Humpers to me. It felt like it went to his head, and he's like, I can literally just take a shit on a VHS tape, and somebody will buy it, and then somebody did. But maybe
I loved it.
Okay.
Like we were talking earlier about Tom Green, and it's like it's very Jackass. It's very much just like let's go out and wreak havoc in public and videotape it.
Has he done anything since Spring Breakers, or is he just like on the crack pipe again?
I'll take a look.
Thank you, Ronald.
Sure. Spring Breakers 2012. Oh, I thought it was.
They came out in 2012.
Yeah, I thought it was more.
I saw it opening night at the ArcLight Theater in Hollywood with a mostly teenage audience who was very disappointed.
He made a movie called The Beach Bum, but then there's also
Beach Bum is a lot of fun. Yeah, The Beach Bum is Matthew McConaughey playing a stoner poet, and it's got Martin Lawrence and Isla Fisher, and but I don't know if you're gonna like it, Dan.
Okay, I mean, I'll check it out.
He's basically leaning into the Trash Humpers thing. It's like, what more can I do with Hollywood stars that is just nonsense? That it feels like a movie that was made for and under the influence of a lot of weed.
Okay, that could be fun. But yeah, I guess to go back to Crispin Glover, so he gives these 2.5-hour Q&As if you ever get the chance to see it. And the second movie I thought was legitimately really good. He basically, this guy with severe cerebral palsy sends him this 300-page movie script that's kind of like a porno describing all the relationships that the guy wished he'd had in his life. And Glover cuts it down to 90 pages, has the guy star in it, hires some hookers to actually there's unsimulated sex in the movie with this guy, and all of his dialogue is unintelligible because severe cerebral palsy, which adds this other kind of weird it's sort of like half the movie is the teacher from Charlie Brown. And I thought that was really interesting. It's sort of not something you think about a whole lot, and he depicted it pretty much more sensitively than I just did.
I'm remembering now, I think I know how we got to Crispin Glover, which was that back in the summer, our cinema did a couple of online screenings with Trent Harris.
Right. We were trying to get Trent Harris on to talk about, but he already talked about Ruben and Ed, because I was like, oh my God, can we talk to Trent Harris?
Yeah.
Because there's two things I want to talk to that guy about, like Ken Sanders' books. Does Ken Sanders actually beat the shit out of people on a motorcycle? Because Trent Harris used to work there. Ruben and Ed. Ruben and Ed is one of my favorite movies. I don't have his contact info.
I mean, I can introduce you. I'm sure he'd be interested.
Okay.
I mean, we kind of jumped the gun on the whole Ruben and Ed thing. Well, first of all, like we did Beaver Trilogy in person when our cinema was still open, and Trent Harris just happened to be in Amsterdam, so he came for Q&A and stuff. But he really is tired of talking about Beaver Trilogy. So when the whole pandemic thing started, we were like, yeah, even though it would be great to have him on for an online screening, he's done talking about that movie. So instead, we did first Plan 10 from Outer Space, which is
I was gonna say that's the only one left, but I guess it isn't.
no, it's not.
We got scooped on all of them.
Yes, but this wasn't recorded, and it was more of just a movie Q&A. But he has tons of stories, and it was funny because when we did Ruben and Ed, we were watching like a rip of the VHS, and he told us during the Q&A that they're going to release a restored Blu-ray this coming year.
Oh my God, I will. Oh yeah, maybe we can be part of the press tour.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is like I'm sure he'll want to talk about it again. But
I would love to see a version of that doesn't look like it was shot on a security camera.
But he had so many great stories, and it was just funny because I started by we showed the Crispin Glover's appearance on David Letterman that got him banned from Letterman. And Trent Harris is not easy to embarrass or shock, but he is mortified by that whole thing, and he didn't want to talk about that thing at all.
Really?
Which really suggested to me maybe that it was more out of Crispin Glover's control than, maybe he was a little bit unhinged at that point in his career, but he was basically doing the character of Ruben 2 years before the movie came out. And so there's also some confusion there about just how long that project was germinating. But he had some great stories because, of course, from making the Beaver trilogy, he got to know Sean Penn, right? And he went to Sean Penn and Madonna's wedding. And he said that Tom Cruise was a valet and parked his car at that wedding. Which yeah. I was just like, wow, man, this is these little anecdotes that you're throwing are just
Oh yeah, that was pre-Top Gun. Yeah, so he was just super young. Yeah.
But anyway, so he said, getting back to Crispin Glover, he said that Crispin Glover makes movies in Salt Lake City, so that, and he works with some of the same people that Trent Harris does or did. So, but he hadn't seen much of Crispin's work, but he said that he was basically still that there was still a Salt Lake City connection somehow. So,
yeah, because Ken Sanders Books is out there. That's the second or third best bookstore I saw when I was going across the country. That place is amazing.
I've never been.
He used to work there, and I figured out he worked there because for some reason there was a copy of Plan 10 from Outer Space on a DVD at the counter.
Okay.
It's the only non-book in the whole place. And then I got talking to the guy about Trent Harris a little bit, and then the guy behind the counter was not Ken. I've met Ken Sanders once or twice because Ken Sanders. So there's there's the ABAA, the American Bookseller, or the Antiquarian Booksellers Association of America, which is the professionals association for people that own bookstores. And every time I went to the big shows to help out at the bookstore that I used to work at, everybody would have a story about Ken Sanders beating somebody up on a motorcycle because they stole some rare book or something. Everybody talked about he was the enforcer, and I never got
down. Yeah,
I never got clear stories about any of it. And then the guy at Second Story Books had this really weird story about buying a mummy and then putting it in the he goes into this basement, and when you're buying out collections of shit, you have no idea what the hell's going to be in somebody's basement. So he sees a full, or no, it wasn't a mummy. It was a preserved body of this famous gangster. And he puts it, because you can't transport a dead body across state lines legally. And he puts it in the passenger seat of his car and takes the diamond lane home. And I was like, I want to grow up to be that guy. That is some baller shit right there. Yeah, that's yeah, there's a lot of weird bookseller. The guy who funded all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre got he was assassinated execution style in the back of the head 5 minutes from the world's largest convenience store, Buc-ee's, out near Austin, Texas, because he sold fake Texas state documents to the mob. And he was the president of the ABAA back in the day, Johnny Jenkins. Anyway, that's the coffee talking.
Well, I'll tell you this. Trent Harris is an incredibly fun person to talk to. He has a lot of stories. He's very humble too. And there's something inspiring because he he's still doing weird stuff. I mean, he's still making movies, and he basically hasn't fundamentally changed in terms of like, you know, his sensibility or something like that. He's just very.
Oh, he's come out with some stuff recently.
Yeah, he's working on a series of films that's like within the same story world as Ruben and Ed.
Okay.
Yeah, but I haven't seen them. But and one of them is now stalled out because of the pandemic. But yeah, but he still works with the same people, and you know, I think he's also teaching film right now in Salt Lake. But
well, I guess if you have like a movie idea and you can't use it, you can just like freeze it in you can put it in your freezer until you can bury it in the desert.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like, oh, that was one of the stories. So the cat in Ruben and Ed was made by I can't remember their guys' name, but the brothers who made Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the special effects guys.
Oh shit.
They made that cat.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Another great movie.
Yeah. Too bad the sequel never got made.
No,
Not yet.
That's Disney's fault.
Yeah.
Because Disney bought the rights, and Disney's never going to release a Killer Clowns movie.
So, any final thoughts about Crispin Glover?
He seems like a weird guy. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's probably some stuff there that we don't know about.
Well, we were talking about how there needs to be a Cat's Eye pest control movie with like the giant like steroided out cat that's in the commercials. And after seeing Willard, I think that Crispin Glover should have some part in that movie. But anyway, this has been Dan.
And this has been Ron.
This has been Matt.
Woo! And we'll see you all at the movies.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye.